Hi, good day. This is Jove Aguas once again, and welcome to my lectures in philosophical anthropology. This is now the third and last part of our lecture or discussion on man as a being and subject. And in this third and last part, I will be talking about the nature of the rational soul and the faculties of man. And here, again, we are going to follow the philosophy or the ideas of Aristotle and St. Thomas Aquinas. Okay. So, according to Aristotle, and again followed by for St. Thomas, there are three vital principles or souls. Remember how we define the soul. The soul is the anima, this, the vital principle, the principle of life. That means that all living beings, living organisms, and these are the plants, the animals, and man, they all have soul. They all have anima because they are all living. Because so don't interpret the soul as a kind of a spirit because the spirit is just one part or one type of anima or soul. So these three vital principles or souls are the vegetative, the sentient, and the rational. Okay, so the vegetative soul is proper to the plants. So it's the soul of the plants, the anima of the plants. The sentient is proper to the animals. So it's the soul of the animals, the sentient soul. And then the last one, the highest of them all, is the rational soul, which is the soul of man. These souls have their corresponding faculties and powers. The vegetative power to the vegetative soul, the sentient power to the sentient soul, and the rational power or powers to the rational soul. Now, in the rational soul, all these powers, the vegetative and the sentient, plus of course the rational powers, they are all in. Okay, meaning the rational soul have all these powers. So man have all these powers, all these faculties. Yes, the power is the faculty of the vegetative, the sentient, and the rational. Okay, so let's define now what is the rational soul. What are the qualities or the properties of the rational soul? First, the rational soul is spiritual. Okay. Second, that it is immaterial. Third, that it is simple. And fourth, that it is immortal. Now, what do you mean by spiritual? When you say spiritual, it means that it does not depend on the body for its existence. It will continue to exist or live even when separated from the body. So when the body dies, the soul continues to exist. The spirit continues to exist because it does not depend on the body for its own existence. The body will corrupt, but the spirit will continue to live. But in the human person, for the spirit to be fully functional, to be to fully perform its operation of intellection, for example, of volition, it will need the body because, as we have said, we cannot know the spirit, the intellect cannot know without perception, and perception is based on the sense organs of the body. Second, what does it mean to be immaterial? It means that it is not contained in a spatio-temporal dimension. It's not physical. It's not subject to the laws of materiality. It can transcend or go beyond time, and it cannot be confined in a space. Now we have a perfect example in the case of Jesus Christ. When after the resurrection, he appeared to the apostles. Okay? In that, after his resurrection, he already has a spiritualized body. So he was able to, enter the room where the apostles were staying, even when all the doors and the windows are closed. He appeared in different places almost simultaneously. Okay? Because he is not confined, he is no longer, yes, confined to space or to time. So you can imagine how in the resurrection, when the body has resurrected, that's part actually of our creed, okay, of the Apostles' Creed, that we going to acquire a spiritualized body. So it's a body that is spiritual. It has already, you know, it has the physical components have already been taken off. All right. So that's the meaning of being immaterial. Now, the second is that the soul is simple. Now, what do you mean by being simple? Simple means that it is not made of parts. Okay. In mathematics, we also use the word simple, meaning it's the simplest unit. It can no longer be divided into parts because it is not made of parts. So, the soul is simple in the sense that it is not composed of parts. It cannot be divided into parts. And you know what happens when a, a physical object is divided into parts, or it is, you know, it ceases to be what it is. See, if for example you chop off the different vegetable, for example, you shred it, well, it's still a vegetable, but it loses, it can be divided into parts, but apply that, for example, to a living being. When you shred or when you chop off, no, the different parts, it will disintegrate. There will be disintegration, and disintegration is actually a kind of corruption, and corruption is the cause. Should we say it's a cause or it's a consequence of death? But corruption and death are related. When the body dies, it will corrupt, right? So corruption is death. And what will corrupt? What can be disintegrated? Those beings that are composed of parts. So the body is composed of parts, it will be corrupted, it will die. Or it will die and then it will corrupt. What about the spirit? The spirit cannot be corrupted because it cannot be disintegrated because it is simple. Right? That's why it cannot die. Okay, it cannot be corrupted. It can be so it can't be so it cannot be disintegrated into parts because again, as we've said, simple. And lastly, that the rational soul is immortal, which means that it continues to exist even after the death of the body. Okay? If it live forever and only God can annihilate the rational soul. So the soul can exist, can live even after the death of the body because it is immortal. Now, immortal is different from being eternal. When you say eternal, it means that it does not have a beginning and does not have an end. And only God fits that definition of being eternal. We are immortal in the sense that we were created by God, or the spirit, sorry, the spirit is created by God, and once created, it will continue to exist until annihilated by God Himself. All right, now let's go now to the next topic, the faculties of man. And as we have already said, there are three faculties: the vegetative faculty, the sentient faculty, and the rational faculty. Right. So, what is the vegetative faculty? This is the vital faculty, the faculty of life. So this includes three operations: nutrition, when we absorb our food, when we nourish, and then augmentation, which is actually the result of our nourishment. When we absorb food, okay, uh, the food actually becomes part of our body and our body grows. And then the last one is reproduction. So reproduction is the capacity to reproduce or generate one's own kind. And the vegetative faculty is a faculty that we share with the plant and the animal, because they also nourish, they also increase in size or grow, and they also reproduce. The second is the sentient faculty. So the sentient faculty are two: the senses and the appetites. The sense is the material cognitive faculty of man. What do you mean by material cognitive faculty? A cognitive faculty is a knowing faculty, knowledge, understanding. We gain knowledge through this faculty. But why call it material faculty? Material because it can know the material qualities of objects. Like, for example, you know the colors because you can see based on our senses. You know the sound because you can hear. We know uh, what the taste or the smell because we can, we have the sense of sight. All right. Now, there are two types of senses. You have the external and the internal. So the external senses, they include the sense of sight, the sense of taste, the sense of smell, the sense of hearing, and the sense of touch. And the internal senses are the common sense, imagination, memory, and the estimative sense. Right? Now, the common sense is the sense that receives all the data coming from our external senses. So the colors, the sound, the taste, etc. And then it's the common sense that forms them together into one image that, is stored in our mind. Okay, so it's the common sense that, you know, tells you that, well, this is a laptop, or that's a whiteboard, okay, or that is a red car. So the red is combined with the other qualities that you see in this particular object, and the common sense will tell you, will put all this together and say, that's a car or a red car. Okay? The imagination is the one that stores all these, you know, images, all these representations in our internal sense. Okay, so you have seen a red car before. So when your friend describes a particular car, you can imagine because you already have a prior perception of a similar object. Memory works the same as imagination. It also stores images, but the difference between the two is that when you say memory, you can only store in your memory those things that you actually perceive in the past. So you try to remember what happened before. You can recall, you can recognize what happened before. What about imagination? Well, you can imagine even those things that you have not seen yet. You can create. You can imagine what's going to happen in the future. But you cannot remember the future. You cannot have a memory of the future. You can only have a memory of the past. You can imagine the past, how it happened, or how it could have happened, and you can also imagine the future. Okay. Now, and then the last one is the estimative sense. It's a sense that estimates or evaluates whether an object that you perceive is going to do you harm or do you good. Okay. So you have that special sense that tells you, oh, this guy will not do will not do good, or this I think this person is friendly, or I think this teacher is kind. Okay, so it gives you that sense that tells you whether an object in front of you, a person or a physical thing, could be harmful or dangerous, or it could be useful, or it could be good for you. Okay, so these are the senses, right? Now, the other part of the sense or the sense faculty is the appetite. And the appetite is the rational inclination, or the natural inclination towards anything that we perceive to be good, or away from anything that we perceive to be evil. Okay? So the sense appetites are also called emotions or feelings. So when you see, for example, when you perceive something to be good, the natural tendency is to move towards it. And if you see something bad, the tendency is to be, stay away from it. So you move towards food because food is good, and you move away from, say, snake because you perceive snake to be bad. It could harm you. But you see, the difference, one important element here is your perception, how you perceive things. Because if you perceive something to be good, even if other people perceive it to be bad, you will still be inclined towards it. I remember this YouTube channel about, about the wildlife, about snakes. Snakes are dangerous for ordinary people, but for these trained animal enthusiasts, see, they love snakes, and they are not afraid of snakes because they perceive big, big snakes as something good because they have trained themselves to, you know, to uh, to raise or to take care of snakes. So it depends on the perception. Even food, for example, well, or the food is objectively good, but if you are not feeling well, it could affect your desire, your appetite towards food. Okay, so it's the natural inclination that if we perceive something good, move towards it. If we perceive something bad, we move away from it. But it will also uh, differ according to our perception. And it will also be a factor whether the object that you are looking at, that you are perceiving, is a real good or just an apparent good. Apparent is it appears to be good, but in reality, it is not. Like vices. Smoking may appear to be good for those who smoke, but in reality, smoking is not good. Okay? So, there are two kinds of appetites, the concupiscible appetites and the irascible appetites. Okay? So, the concupiscible appetites, these are what they call the, the mild emotions. Mild emotions. What do you mean by mild emotion? Well, in contrast to the irascible appetite, which is called the ardus, the strong emotion. Okay? So, what are the concupiscible appetites? Well, the concupiscible appetites are love. So, when you say love, perceive something good, you move towards it. Then, desire. You desire something that is good, but it's not there, so you desire. I'm going to explain this later. I will enumerate first. So you have love, desire, and joy, and then hatred, aversion, and sorrow. The object of love, desire, and joy is one, good. You love the good, you desire the good, and you are joyful or happy with the good. Now, what's the difference? Well, love is just tendency towards anything that you perceive to be good. But suppose that good is not yet here, not yet present. It's still something that you need to achieve. It's not yet present. Like, for example, you're starting to, you start the class. At the end of the class, or the end of the course, the semester, you will be given grade. And what kind of grade would you desire? Good grade. But the good grade is not yet there because you have just started the class. So the good grade is not yet present. So you desire good grade. Okay? How you wish your parent will buy you a good laptop for your online class, but the laptop is not there. But you heard that your parents were talking. We have to buy our child, a new laptop for his online class. The laptop is not there, but not yet there. But you overheard their conversation, so you are desiring that they will buy you a good laptop. That's desire. And then when finally the laptop is there, and when finally the good grades are there, or when finally the person you really desire is there, what happens? What's your emotion? You become happy. That is joy. Okay? the emotions that you feel when the object of love, of desire, is finally attained. Now, hatred, aversion, and sorrow, they have one thing in common. Their object is evil. You hate object, or you hate evil. You avoid, you are averse to evil, and of course, you are, sad when evil comes. So you hate sickness, you hate disease, all right? You hate failure. So failure is not there, not yet. Sickness is, not yet happening. So you avoid. Aversion is a feeling of towards an evil that is not present, and you're trying to ward them off. But what happens when suddenly failures come, you become sick, so you become sad. The result is sorrow. So sorrow is the feeling that you the, the feeling for an evil that actually happens. Now, the second classification of appetites are the irascible. They are called, as I've said, the strong or intense emotions, and this includes the this includes anger, and this includes anger, hope, courage, despair. Uh, Let me repeat that: hope, courage, despair, fear, and anger. The object of hope and despair are the same: good. You hope for the good and you become desperate because of the good. Now, how is that? Hope is a feeling for a good that is difficult to attain but possible to attain. So, if you think, for example, getting high grades is difficult, but you think, if I'm going to study harder, I might get flat one in this course. So if you feel like that, that flat one or one is difficult but attainable, you are hoping. Now consider vaccine during this pandemic. Vaccine is kind of complicated and difficult to formulate to get. But people think that it is possible to finally come up with a good vaccine against the virus. So everybody is hopeful to have the vaccine to overcome the virus. How about if first exam, first quiz, get a very bad grade. After that, next exam, bad grade, low on grade. Your hope is diminished. It is now replaced with despair. Because the object of despair is something that is good, difficult to attain. But now, instead of being possible, it's becoming more difficult, more impossible to attain. So you become more desperate. So let us say after 6 months, after 1 year, we have not developed a vaccine that will be really be, effective against the virus. Now we become desperate. We thought that the ECQ will be lifted soon, but it seems like eternity. The lockdown is not nowhere in the future can the MECQ or the GCQ will be lifted. So as time, as days pass by, we become more desperate. Now, what about courage and fear? The object of courage and fear are the same: evil. It's an evil that is difficult. Okay? Evil that is really difficult. But if you think we can overcome that evil, we become courageous. You go to war, you go to battle, of course, facing your enemies is difficult. But if you think you can overcome your enemy, you have courage. Okay, you have the courage. So sickness, for example, COVID-19 is difficult. It is fatal. But what about our frontliners, our medical frontliners? They think even if this disease is really difficult, really fatal, they think they can overcome it. They become courageous. So they continue to serve us. Now suppose you think that you cannot overcome the enemy. What's the feeling? What's the emotion? Fear. Because fear is an emotion, you know, about evil that is difficult but cannot be overcome. You become afraid. So you perceive darkness as evil and it cannot be overcome. You become afraid of darkness. And then, of course, the last one is anger. It is the faculty that, or the emotion that, it's an extreme kind of hatred that you want to cause harm, destroy the object that is evil. So it's a very intense emotion where the person wants to do harm or do violence or destroy the object that he considers to be evil. Okay. Now, let's go to the third and last faculty, and that is the rational faculty. So, the rational faculty is the faculty of intelligence. Okay? So, it is the power that is, as I've said, proper to human person because it is the faculty that is actually based on our reason. It is the faculty that differentiates man from other corporeal beings, from the animals and from the plants. And man has two rational faculties, the intellect and the will. So we define the intellect as the spiritual cognitive faculty. We have already said what we mean by cognitive faculty. It means a faculty of knowledge, faculty for understanding. Why call it spiritual? Because it is the faculty that can know abstract, spiritual, immaterial objects like concepts. Compared to the senses can know the colors because of the perception. It can know physical objects. But when you talk of abstract concepts, here comes in the intellect. Okay? We cannot see justice, right? Except if you talk of the justice of the courts. They are persons, so you can see them. But justice, the virtue, we cannot see them. But we can understand justice because we have intellect. We cannot really see beauty, the concept, although we can see beautiful face, beautiful car, beautiful house, beautiful, beautiful scene, etc. But in order for us to understand beauty itself, we will need the intellect. So it's the intellect that understands the concepts that are abstract. Okay. So, of course, the intellect still depends on the senses because, as we have said, nothing comes into the mind without passing to the senses. But it is the intellect that understands these concepts, okay? Based, of course, on the data presented by our senses. So, this is the faculty that enables us to know the objects that are spiritual, that are immaterial, the abstract, and the universal. And it is also the intellect that allows us or enables us to understand or to recognize the world and other people. It's the faculty that allows us to make decisions, to plan, to conduct our lives properly in the world. Now, the intellect has three operations or three acts. The first one is simple apprehension. It's a faculty the operation allows us to understand or form ideas or concept. So we form concept of school, we form concept of mother, we form concept of people, we form concept of say what else? Laptop, class, learning, etc., etc. The second is judgment, and it's in the second operation of judgment. What the intellect does is to combine the different concepts that it was able to form. Like for example, so now you understand what a laptop is, and you also understand what online learning is. So if you fully understand what is a laptop, what it can do, what are its functions, and you understand what is online learning, what it entails to engage in online learning, and everything that is related to it, then you can say laptop is important or necessary for online learning. The mind combines the two concepts, and that happens in judgment. Okay. Now, the third is the uh, reasoning. So the first one is simple apprehension, judgment, reasoning. Reasoning is the highest operation of the intellect. It is where the intellect can now form new knowledge, new judgments, new statements based on the previous knowledge. So if you know what laptop is, you know what is online learning is, and you are able to combine, make a statement about laptop being necessary for online learning, okay? And then, of course, you can add some other concepts. Like, for example, online learning is, uh, online learning is the trend or the new normal today, in at least in education. Online learning is the new trend, okay? Now, if you can say, so online learning is the trend today. You know what we mean by the new normal, of course. No? So yeah, from your simple apprehension, you have already formed an understanding of what is the new normal. So online learning is the new normal today. And you combine that with the statement, laptop is necessary for online learning. So is the if online learning is the new normal today, and laptop is necessary for online learning, what can you deduce from there? What can you deduce? Therefore, laptop is necessary in the new normal. So you arrive at this knowledge that laptop is important in the new normal based on your apprehension first of the many concepts of laptop, of new normal, online learning. So when you are able to combine these concepts into different statements based on your judgment, then you come up with a new judgment, you come up with a new knowledge. That is the function of the intellect. Of course, that's a very simple example. And you can go on with all the things that we do. That's how reason. So for example, will I attend the class today? You can formulate your inference, your reasons, until you finally decide, well, I'm going to attend the class today, based on prior knowledge, prior information, okay, prior statement, etc. Now, finally, you have the will, which is the faculty of volition. So this is the faculty of choice. And it is the faculty that inclines us to, towards what we consider to be rationally good, and make us go away from what we consider to be rationally evil. So it's not just about uh, go be inclined towards food or uh, staying away from sickness or from snakes, etc. So when you say the will, the faculties, we're talking here of making choices, not just about objects, but general condition. Like for example, you would love peace, right? You would love peace. So our will is inclined towards peace. Not just because you desire some quiet moments, okay? Or you desire some moments when nobody bothers you. But the will aspires for something, something general, okay? Something that you have really considered to be in your mind. So for example, peace is good, so God is good, so you choose God. Sins are bad, therefore you avoid sins. So it's the faculty that enables us to make choices and to determine our course of action. So if you love peace, then your actions will be oriented towards this. If you love God, then your whole life will be directed to God. Your choices will be directed to God. All right. Now, if you have considered drugs and illegal activities to be bad, then you stay away from them. Okay. So if you consider war to be bad, then you avoid all things that will lead to war. So it is our intelligence and volition, therefore, that enables us to make sense of our lives, to make decisions, to live and determine our life, our action. Now, the faculty of volition or volition is expressed through our freedom. Self-determination is a kind of freedom. If we are free, then we can determine ourselves, right? But freedom can be understood in many senses, and we based on this notion of volition, we can have two kinds of freedom: the freedom of exercise and the freedom of specification. Now, what is the freedom of exercise? It's the freedom to do or not to do. So, for example, am I going to attend the online class today or not? Am I going out or not? Am I going to play or not? Study or not? Freedom of exercise. Okay? Now, what about freedom of specification? Freedom of specification is the freedom to choose from different things, different alternatives, different options. So suppose you decide that you are going to study. So you've exercised your freedom of exercise. You're going to study. The next step is to determine, to choose what you will study. Will I study in philosophy? Will I study in math? Will I study in science, in English, etc.? That's freedom of specification. So, will I eat or not? I will not eat. So, if I'm not going to do this, what will be my options? Or if I'm going to eat, what will be my options? So, you see, freedom of specification follows from the freedom of exercise. Because once you have decided to do, then the next step is to decide what are you going to do. Or if you're not going to do this, then what are the other options? Okay, so that's freedom of exercise and freedom of specification. So those are the faculties, the three faculties of man: vegetative, sentient, and rational. So let me just enumerate the three faculties and these operations. Under vegetative faculty, you have the uh, operation of nutrition, augmentation, and reproduction. Okay, nutrition, augmentation, reproduction. Under the sensing faculty, we divide this into two. You have the senses and the appetites. The senses are divided into two: the external senses and the internal senses. So the external senses are the sense of sight, sense of hearing, sense of taste, sense of smell, and sense of touch. Under the internal faculty, you have the common sense, the imagination, memory, and the estimative sense. Under the appetites, you have two kinds, the concupiscible and the irascible. Under the concupiscible, you have love, desire, and joy. And then you have hatred, aversion, and sorrow. Under the irascible appetite, you have courage and despair. I'm sorry, you have hope and despair. You have courage and fear and anger. Under the rational faculty, you have two things, two faculties. Faculty of the intellect, which has three operations: simple apprehension, judgment, and reasoning. And the will, you have to exercise freedom, and there are two kinds of freedom that we have discussed. Of course, there are many others, many definitions of freedom. Freedom of exercise and freedom of specification. Okay, so that's the end of this lecture. We have discussed the three parts of the lectures under the topic man as a being and subject. Thank you very much for listening. Stay tuned for the next lecture. Take care and God bless.